back with another review as requested for me to do both The Force Awakens and Last Jedi in honor of May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. And this is the Last Jedi spoiler review. If you have not seen this one, please go watch The Last Jedi and make sure you come back and watch this one after you've seen it so you can enjoy this spoiler review, because let's get right into it. As I did in the Force Awakens review, which I'll have a link in the description to that one if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go look at that one first, because I set up a lot of context for what I'm going to talk about in this one. As I did in that one, we're going to break this one down with characters, story, positives and negatives, and kind of tell you how it ranks for me personally in my all-time favorite Star Wars films as far as it goes live action. So let's get right into the cast. The unbelievable cast. You have Carrie Fisher as Leia. You have Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. You have Daisy Ridley as Rey. You have John Boyega as Finn. You have Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron. You have a really good actress. One of my favorites is Laura Dern as Vice Admiral Holdo. You also have Andy Serkis as Snoke. My boy, one of the reasons why I love this film so much, you have Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. And then you have some of the other characters like Donald Gleason as General Hux. And you have Gwendolyn Christie as Captain Phasma, which is very disappointing, but we'll talk about that in the film. Like The Force Awakens, most of the story is a lot more straightforward. So the characters are a little bit more straightforward, and anybody who has a character arc, obviously most of the attention is going to be spent on them. There was a lot of different places and locations in The Force Awakens that's not present in this film, but I like that. And I'm going to get into the reasons why when we get into the story aspect of it. Right now we're just talking about characters. And let's talk about the main one here. I'm going to talk about it right off the bat, and that's Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia, or in this case, General Leia. I loved her in this movie. This is my favorite Princess Leia we've had so far. And all the saga, this is my favorite one for Princess Leia. I just loved her in this, and it wasn't just because it's the latest one. Because a lot of people would say that, well, this is only your favorite because this is the one. That's gonna no, it doesn't. Because my favorite Harrison Ford is in Empire Strikes Back. So there you go, which was made when I was born. So that has nothing to do with it, just because it's fresh and new that it's my favorite. This is my favorite of hers because in this movie, I felt like she was Princess Leia. She felt like General Leia in The Force Awakens. In this movie, in Last Jedi, she felt like Princess Leia, and that's the one we remember. And I love that about her. She did an amazing job. I'm so sad that she's not here anymore with us, and it's going to be very upsetting no matter how they address it, no matter how they do it in Episode 9. Her presence is going to be missed because from what was reported from Disney, just like the Force Awakens was Harrison Ford's Han Solo movie, Episode 8 was Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker movie, and Episode 9 was supposed to be Carrie Fisher's Leia movie, and we don't get that. At least not the way that we would like to. Now, since we're talking about Princess Leia, I will say this. We've already seen her as a CGI character at the end of Rogue One. Now, yeah, that's one scene with her basically giving a smile and she's a lot younger. People say they want to recast her. If it was me, I don't think I would recast her. I've had a lot of people ask me that. No, I wouldn't recast her. I would, in the opening crawl, say she is gone because unlike between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, going into Episode 9, there is a time jump. And a lot of people are saying it might be as significant as 10 years. Now, I hope they don't go that far. I'm hoping they do just their standard one, which is 2 to 3, at tops, 5 years. That'll give you a much more time for Kylo Ren to settle in as a supreme leader. Let the universe kind of settle down from what happened after the events of The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. And for the most part, have Rey more time to train as a Jedi, so she is a full-blown Jedi going up against, at that, hopefully, a full, complete dark side user in Kylo Ren, who's not conflicted. He is completely in the dark side. We'll talk about that with his character in a moment. But hopefully that's what we get. At least that's what I'm wanting. But by that time, hopefully Princess Leia, you can probably deal with her in the opening crawl, or you can reference it throughout the film and keep her presence there. And if you have to recast her, I have no problem with it. A lot of people say they want Meryl Streep to play her. I don't want Meryl Streep to play her. If it was me, I would get Glenn Close to play her. But that's just me. Glenn Close, if you can just see her in Guardians of the Galaxy, I could see her playing Princess Leia. So if you're gonna recast her, that would be my choice. But that's just me. So let's get into some of the other characters here. Kylo Ren. This was the movie where I loved him in Force Awakens. In this movie, The Last Jedi, I was sold on Kylo Ren and his arc. No matter what happens in Episode 9, if all I had was these two movies, that is one of the most interesting story arcs I have seen in movies in a long time. Let's just get right into it. And again, spoilers. He is one of the most unpredictable characters we've seen. Now, in the first film, in The Force Awakens, he murders his father. A lot of us saw that coming once they were on the bridge. We saw it. Once Han walked up on that bridge, which has on that walkway with no rails, something is wrong with the Resistance and the Empire. They just have these spaces where there are no rails, with walkways that go 30, 40, 50 feet with no railing. Don't get it. They must want people to be impaled by lightsabers and fall the fuck off. For him to do that, we kind of had a sense as soon as Han walked on that walkway, didn't look good. In this movie, as I said in The Force Awakens, I told people when The Force Awakens came out, I remember coming out of the theater saying, I think either Rey or Kylo Ren is going to take care of Snoke real easily in Episode 8. I don't even know why I knew that. I just kind of had this sense, because of the way they were setting up Snoke, that he would just be a good way to show how powerful, story-wise, one of those two characters were. So I knew going into the throne room scene with Rey and Kylo and Snoke, I knew Snoke was going to die in that scene. I personally thought Rey was going to do it. And the scene where she grabs Kylo's lightsaber and runs towards Snoke, I was like, well, this is it. She's going to kill him right here. I honestly believed that Rey was going to kill him, and somehow the story arc would make it where Rey, in killing him, so goes to the dark side, has to go to the dark side to be able to kill him, and she accepts that responsibility. Kylo Ren ends up going to the light. Obviously I was wrong. It might be my second favorite Star Wars moment in all the saga. My favorite Star Wars moment is when the scene where Han gets encased in carbonite in Empire Strikes Back. That is my all-time favorite Star Wars scene, and for so many different reasons. And when I review that film in the future, I'll tell you all the reasons why I love that scene so much. But which is why Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars film. But the throne room scene is a close second, and the more I watch it, the more I love it, because it's not that Kylo Ren killed Snoke. It's the fact that Rey, seeing him, thinking oh my goodness, he is on my side, he saved me. It's not just that he killed Snoke, it's the way he killed him, by Snoke basically verbalizing everything that's about to happen, who he believes is going to happen to Rey, but it's happening to him. Kylo Ren is so powerful that Snoke couldn't even see that Kylo Ren was going to kill him, and to Snoke's arrogance as well, ends up being cut in half by Kylo Ren, and Rey thinking, well, Kylo Ren did this for us, did this for me, let's get the hell out of here, and find out, no, Kylo Ren is a dark side user. He killed Snoke just like any Sith apprentice is supposed to kill their master. Even though Snoke and Kylo are not Sith, the rule of two still applies with dark side users, I guess in this case, because he killed Snoke. Now we do also realize that they're not complete Sith, and the rule of two doesn't quite apply, because the Knights of Ren, obviously that's a group of dark side users that are working together, and that goes a little bit astray from Sith users. So Kylo Ren is not a Sith, at least not in this movie. I do believe he will be a Sith in Episode 9. That's just my prediction. This is a different film than The Force Awakens. So I love that about Kylo in this movie. Let's get to Rey. Rey is an amazing character. I loved her in The Force Awakens. I absolutely love Daisy Ridley in this movie. I like her better in The Last Jedi than I do in The Force Awakens, because she is a much stronger character. Again, social justice warriors aside, I think she's a great character. I don't think she's a Mary Sue. I think she has been put through things that is no different than Luke Skywalker went through when he went through his trilogy. And if you didn't have a problem with that, then don't have a problem with this. And that's all I got to say about that. I think she's a great, strong character, and with that yin-yang quality with Kylo, I thought Snoke bridging their minds and bringing them into the same space through the Force mentally was one of the best original ideas that Rian Johnson could have came up with. Now, people are shitting on Rian Johnson because they didn't like the movie. A lot of people did not like this movie, obviously. Force Awakens, it was hard pressed to find anybody who didn't like the movie. But one of the complaints about it was that it was too fresh. I mean, it wasn't fresh enough. It was too reliant on the nostalgia of the original trilogy, where Rian Johnson's Last Jedi is not, and now everybody complains about it. This is an original Star Wars story that we have not seen before, and it happens from beginning to end. It does not feel like any other films. In fact, I'll tell you where this ranks, but I think it's much more on par with Empire Strikes Back, but not for the reasons that people think. People think that, I think this movie was its own original contained film from beginning to end and did a lot of things that were bold and risky, and I think in the end it pays off. And people have to remember, when The Empire Strikes Back came out, back then it was not well received by a lot of people. A lot of people hated that movie, that it ended in the cliffhanger, that it was so dark, that the Empire won, that it didn't have all the fun from the first one. But if you go back and watch The Empire Strikes Back, it is fun. It is considered the greatest, by most people, the greatest film, Star Wars film of all time. And me personally, I think it actually ranks in my top 3 as one of the greatest films. Forget Star Wars, one of the greatest films of all time. It is a perfect film. So you have to put things into context with that, and I actually put The Last Jedi in that. 20 years from now, in my opinion, this will be one of those films where it will be universally recognized as one of the best Star Wars films in the franchise. We just haven't seen how it's paid off yet. Once Episode 9 comes out and puts The Last Jedi in more context, and you can put it all together, I think The Last Jedi will be much more appreciated story-wise and character-wise, and overall. It's not perfect. It's not. I'm not anyway would dare say that, because there's some things about this movie that I don't like. We'll get to that in a moment. But as a character, I like Kylo. Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is my second favorite Star Wars character, and one of the reasons why I've always liked him is because people say they didn't like that Kylo Ren was whiny. They didn't like that Anakin Skywalker was whiny. Have you ever seen a more whiny kid than you saw Luke Skywalker in A New Hope? He's whining from the beginning of the movie to the end. His voice is almost annoying. People don't even... Just, if you had to listen to a loop of Mark Hamill's voice from A New Hope over and over and over again, you would be driven insane. His voice is so annoying to me in that film. He sounds like a whiny little spoiled brat. But at the same time, look what he turned into in Return of the Jedi. And I love it. The payoff from him being that way in New Hope pays off. And it goes, now that we have him in another film, in this one, I think it pays off even more. Luke Skywalker is not your prototypical Jedi from the prequel area, where like Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan, who just walks around and they don't make mistakes and they're very noble. They're almost like Captain America. Luke Skywalker makes major mistakes all the time. He makes them all the time, and it's no different in this movie. Exiled by himself on this planet of Ahch-To, guarding the sacred Jedi texts from anybody who would dare come to get them. And not only is he doing this, but he is closed off from the Force. He has no desire to ever be a part of the Jedi religion anymore. He is a great Jedi. In its essence, he is a great Jedi. And it's the first time we've seen someone like this in the live action films who is a great Jedi to this extent. Now, some people say that Qui-Gon Jinn was a borderline great Jedi, and Count Dooku was a great Jedi for a while, and then Mace Windu went to the... But this is different. This is Luke Skywalker, and he's a conflicted, damaged, emotional man who has lost a lot in his life, and he is, as he said in the film, ready to just end it all with the Jedi and the Sith, and he's ready to die. Which is funny, because that's the same thing Kylo Ren, his apprentice, says. Let's end it. The Jedi and the Sith, it all needs to end. And I think a lot of people don't realize that in this movie, which make the whole theme of this movie is that Kylo Ren thinks the Sith and the Jedi all need to end, and so does Luke Skywalker. They believe in the exact same thing. They're just on opposite sides of the fence with it. But at the same time, you have someone like Rey, this person who's awakening in the Force, and she is essentially the thing that they always talked about in these movies before. We need to balance the Force. You'll bring balance to the Force. We hear that all the time. In The Last Jedi, we finally get to see what that was meant to be, because Kylo Ren and Rey are is about as balanced as you can possibly get. You have one of the most powerful dark side users of all time, and you have one of the most powerful light side users of all time, and they're both trying to figure it out for themselves at the same time, but both are conflicted. Kylo Ren is still conflicted by the light side. Rey is being led to the dark side on several occasions. She actually went to the dark side a little bit to defeat Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens. So they're both tempted by the opposite. So obviously Kylo Ren does benefit a little bit from still being torn by the light side. It actually fuels his anger. And Rey makes herself a little bit more powerful, just as Mace Windu did in the prequel trilogy, by tapping into the dark side a bit and making her a little bit more impulsive and stronger and more fierce than she probably wouldn't be if she was just a dogmatic person who just only looked at the light side and that's it. And I like that in this movie, and this concept of Kylo Ren and Rey basically canceling each other out, but also having to work side by side as they did in the throne room scene, where you had to see for the first time, you got to see a light side user and a dark side user back to back fighting against a common interest, but fundamentally completely opposed to what they each other's doing, but both capable of switching sides at any moment. It's a very good concept. Many people out there had a problem with Luke Skywalker being a hermit on a planet, and he's not wanting to help anybody at all, closing himself off from the Force, even from his own sister. But I like the storyline. I like the way they went. They could have done 1,000 things. They could have had him jumping from planet to planet, pulling down Star Destroyers with his bare hands on the planets and all that. We would have expected that. This was more human. This felt like more like what Luke Skywalker to do. We don't need to see all that shit. That's what video games are for. I want to see a story when I go to see Star Wars. And they, in my opinion, I don't blame Rian Johnson for 1 second for what he did with this character. I love what he did with Luke Skywalker. Let's get to some of the other characters. And again, social justice warriors, if you don't like this section, fuck you. As I said in The Force Awakens, go hump your cousin or something, because you're obviously losing your mind. If you don't find the female characters in this movie to be strong, good, breath of fresh air characters that we don't always get in any film, let alone in Star Wars, for 30 years, for 40 years, with the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, all you men out there have had your chance to see all the lead characters be men, and a few women speckled here and there, and getting saved by these guys all the time. And outside of Leia and Padme, you don't have a lot of them. So you guys have 6 movies, okay? If you're an African American hater or something like that, you've had 6 movies where all the guys who were fighting were white guys. All the main characters are white. Luke Skywalker, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader, the Emperor. They're all white guys. You had 6 movies. Don't complain about 2 movies that has a female lead and an African American lead. Well, he's not African American. John Boyega is not from America, obviously, but you have a person of color in the lead and a female in the lead, and maybe they have some chemistry together. Don't bring that into a film like this, where it's supposed to be about diversity. This is Star Wars. There are aliens in this saga, if you hadn't noticed. So I guess you like the aliens more than you like actual people that you see on Earth, which is very strange to me. You know, I do not get it. But I love the female presence in this movie, as I did The Force Awakens. I don't have a problem with it at all. Some of my favorite characters in this movie are the women. I actually like Rose. Now, I ain't gonna lie to you. The first time I saw The Last Jedi, and actually the first few times, I struggled with Rose. I couldn't figure out if I liked her or not. But I read the novel, and after I read the novel, The Last Jedi, I started to appreciate her character a little bit more. I liked her better in the novel than I did in the movie. Now, obviously, the novels are not canon, so even though they say they are, I don't buy that shit for 1 second. I'll never read a novel and think that it completely translates. But there's an essence of Rose in the novel, in the movie, and she's actually a sweet character, and she's not as interesting as I think her sister Paige was, who died in the beginning of the movie with the bombing attack, who sacrificed herself. I would have loved to see that character go on this journey instead of it, but that's just me. I don't have a problem with Rose at all. I think she did a great job. The only problem is, as we talk about Finn as well, I love Finn in The Force Awakens. He was the engine that started this whole saga by him defecting. He put all this stuff into motion. He's a hero, and he was running, and he realized, I can't run. I'm going to pick up this lightsaber. I'm going to fight Kylo Ren. And in this movie, and this is where I have to fault Rian Johnson quite a bit, it's almost like they had nothing for Finn to do. And I hate that. He was such a good character in the first movie, and in The Last Jedi, he is relegated to a backseat side character with absolutely nothing to do until the third act, where I feel like he had a moment there, and they almost ruined it. We'll talk about it in a moment, but I'm just not a fan of what... I mean, they could have found something for Finn to do in this movie. It just irritates the fuck out of me that he's just relegated to a backseat like that. And the same with Chewbacca. I mean, you have this classic original character from the original trilogy, and you just sit him around and miss all these wonderful opportunities for him to interact with Luke Skywalker, somebody who he has been on missions with. They have a relationship, and Luke barely even acknowledges Chewie in this movie. I mean, the scene where Luke is inside of his hut, and Chewie kicks on the door and yells at him and basically tells him, get the fuck up and get back into the fight. All he says is, Chewie, what are you doing here? And then you never see him talk to the guy again. I don't get that. What a wasted opportunity for Luke Skywalker and Chewbacca to have rapport and to talk about Han and things like that. It's just certain things just, oh my goodness, you just want to see that so bad. And the fact that Luke Skywalker is dead, again, spoilers if you don't know this, Luke Skywalker dies in the movie, and we'll talk about that scene. I'm going to save that scene towards the end of the review, but it's just, what a wasted opportunity for me. And I feel like it's a wasted opportunity for Finn as well. I just never, I don't really like I like Rose as a character, but I just don't like her interaction with Finn most of the time, because Finn is, for what he did in the Force Awakens, he just shouldn't even be interacting with her at all, because he should have had a better mission to do. He shouldn't even be running away again. And I know he's running away because he wants to save Rey, but I think in a way they got him so obsessed with Rey that it's almost getting to the point where if she doesn't end up with him, what was the point to all that? You've completely wasted his character with him running around 2 movies in a row screaming Rey like a freaking psycho instead of giving him something productive to do. And it's mind-boggling to me. I will not ever understand why you have someone like Finn off on a casino planet running around chasing a guy and failing. Now, we'll get to failures in a minute. I don't have a problem with them failing at all, but I just want Finn to have something better to do than that. And Rose, she just seems like she's along for the ride. I don't know if The Last Jedi really needed her in this story, and I hate to say it, but sometimes I wish, like, if she wasn't around, I think Finn's storyline would have been better on his own. If he was doing all that by himself, or just with BB-8 on that mission, I think it might have been better. But I hate to say that, but it has nothing to do with the fact that she's Rose. I actually love her, and her being a woman, it has nothing to do with it. It could be a man, it could be anybody. It doesn't matter to me. Let's get into Vice Admiral Holdo. I love this character. Again, social justice warriors, go hump your cousin or something. I don't care. She is a great, great character. I don't think she should have told Poe anything about the plot or anything that was going on, because he hadn't earned that from her, because she doesn't know him like Leia. And she even says later on, I like him, after she figures out more about him. But up to that point, he just had a whole bombing unit destroyed for one dreadnought, and then they're outside looking out the window, and there's a supremacy out there that makes the dreadnought look like a fucking Tic Tac. So he got a bunch of people killed, not at all for anything other than the fact that he's impulsive, which is part of his story arc. So I have no problem with Holdo pointing that out and not giving him all the information, because at that point he was demoted, so she has nothing to say to him. So that's fine. And if it was the other way around, I don't think anybody would have had a problem with it. If Poe was the vice admiral and she was the one who blew up the bombing unit, and he was like, I'm not going to tell you, nobody would have a fucking problem with it. But it's a woman telling the guy that, so now get the fuck out of here. I have no problem with that at all. I loved her sacrifice. A lot of people thought that maybe Admiral Akbar had earned the right to do that beautiful classic scene of her going to light speed through the Supremacy Snoke's ship. I was fine with it. I like General Akbar's death, because that's the spoils of war. That's war for you. You don't always go out like a freaking hero in a blaze of glory saving thousands of people. Sometimes you just die in war, and I think that's what happened. And I love her sacrifice. I really like her character. She was one of the things I loved the most when we're not focused on Finn and Rey and Luke Skywalker and Snoke and Kylo. I liked her in the scenes. I thought she gave a different energy in there. Because if it was just Poe running around talking to Leia the whole time, it would have gotten maybe a little stale. I like the fact that she was in there. And again, Leia not being around, and let's talk about the Force, the Mary Poppins scene here. Did I have a problem with it? The first time I saw it, I didn't have a problem with it, but the more I see it, the only problem I have with it is that I wish she was wearing something else so she doesn't look like fucking Mary Poppins, because she does. She looks like fucking Mary Poppins. I wish they would have done something with the way she did it, where she doesn't look like she's flying. They could have filmed it in a way where it was much more like she's using the Force. There's things moving out of the way and she's manipulating them to get the shit, instead of just having her stiff as a fucking board, just going to a thing. I just wish they would have had her, if she can do that, just move her hand a little bit and have her move some debris out of the way, whatever, and not make her so stiff. I would have liked it if she would have been back with her feet forward and she was pulling and she was kind of bent over and like in a anything, but that only thing she was missing was the fucking umbrella. Okay, she looked like Mary Poppins. I love Carrie Fisher. It's not her fault. My God, that looked bad. I didn't like it. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh. But I do like the moment. I like the moment. I just don't like the way it looks. That's my whole problem with that. But getting back to the Holdo and everything that was happening there, I feel like what the tension in the Resistance, having this mutiny going on, because Poe Dameron, let's talk about him. He's impulsive, obviously, and I like his story arc because he learns the hard way, and I'm going to talk about failure here. Failure was something that was present in this movie from beginning to end, and if you look at it, a lot of people who didn't look at this film and through the eyes of that prism of failure and why it's so important in life for you to fail, and that is you're not going to always succeed. I don't think people realize that. From the time this movie starts to the time it ends, people are failing. Every person in this movie fails at some point at something. Now, some people have their lives taken away from it, but there's failures all over the place. And we can talk about Poe's failure with the bombing fleet. That's a failure. You can talk about Rey trying to get Ben to go to the dark side, come back to the light. She doesn't get him to do that. He ends up staying in the dark. That's a failure. Yeah, you have Luke Skywalker failing to accept the challenge to get back into the fight and failing his student Kylo by assuming that Kylo was going to be this basically Darth Vader Part 2. He failed him in that because he didn't trust him. So that's a failure. You have Princess Leia. She fails in a way because she can't protect the Republic and the Resistance. The Resistance has faded away, and she feels the failure of that. She feels like she's taken that upon herself that's happened. You have Rose, her and Finn, who failed DJ when he comes in. That whole mission fails, and they have to pay the consequences of that. You have Snoke, and he failed. He gets chopped in half. Kylo Ren, he fails to get Rey to join him. You have Hux, he fails to become the supreme leader. You have, everybody in this movie has a failure except Yoda. Let's talk about him real quick. Seeing Yoda in this film was awesome. I loved it. A lot of people thought he might be in the film. A lot of people thought maybe Obi-Wan Kenobi should have been in that spot, not Yoda going to talk to Luke Skywalker. I'm like, who better to do it than Yoda? Yoda trained Luke at a time where he really needed it and showed him some things. And going back to failures, Luke's failures in Empire Strikes Back got his arm cut off. He went to go front Darth Vader too fast, and some things happened, and you think he would have learned from that. But I love seeing Yoda in the movie. I like the puppet Yoda. He was awesome. He's one of the characters I just loved, and the message that he gives to Luke Skywalker is, when I told you to continue to teach them, it wasn't always the good things. You have to also teach failure. You have to pass on what you have learned, and failure is part of your learning experience. And once he knows that, then Luke gets back into the fight, and I love the message in that. The Battle of Crate, let's talk about that real quick, with Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader. He wishes, right? Against Kylo Ren. I didn't have a problem with Luke projecting himself across the universe to fight, quote-unquote, fight Luke Skywalker. This is, again, a good breath of fresh air with this movie, is that this is also the first movie we've seen in the saga where there is no lightsaber battle. There's lightsaber usage, but there are no lightsabers that clash together in this film, and a lot of people had a problem with it. I did not. I like the force projection scene. One of the most beautiful scenes in the movie is when Luke shows up. He's not actually there. He looks younger, and he has his last interaction with Leia, and he gives her a kiss on the forehead, gives her the dice from Han Solo's ship, and it's just a beautiful moment. And him to walk out after saying the line early in the movie to Rey, what did you think, that I was going to walk out in front of the First Order with a laser sword all by myself and take care of him? And for him to walk out there, hologram or not, he was not going to do it. He had closed himself off in the Force, but he opens it up early in the film when he reconnects with Leia and sees that she's in danger. He opens himself up back to the Force, and he walks out there, projection or not, and he faces on the First Order with a laser sword, what she calls it, obviously. And for Kylo Ren to unleash on him, all the power from the guerrilla walkers and try to blow this guy up and create. By the way, that's one of my favorite planets. I love that salt over that red. It's just beautiful. For these two to match up, but the real matchup, the real clash to fight is verbally these two going back and forth with each other, and it's just I love the scene. I love the way it looks. There's a lot of Japanimation in the way Rian Johnson constructs these shots and the way they're put together with the really wide shots. It's beautiful poster like wide shots. Great ending for me. And to see Luke Skywalker finally leave as he's looking into the sunset, just as he did in A New Hope, and you go full arc with him, I didn't have a problem with it. At first, the first time I saw the Last Jedi, I had a real problem with Luke Skywalker dying, but then I realized he's obviously going to be a Force Ghost in episode 9, excuse me. But at the same time, a lot of people are speculating that he didn't actually die, that he went into maybe he projected himself somewhere else. Maybe he was never on Octu to begin with. A lot of people are thinking that because one of the clues is, and Rian Johnson tried to backtrack from it a little bit, was that when he passed away and he vanished and his cloak flew in the wind, his robotic arm should have fell down onto the rock he was sitting on, because only flesh of the Force user goes away, not the stuff that is attached to him. His cloak would have went away too, but his cloak blew away, but his actual hand stayed on him. Now we'll see in the future in episode 9 if they actually commit to the fact that Luke Skywalker wasn't actually on Octu and that he was actually somewhere else, or he was projecting himself, or he can manipulate to the Force to the point where he can manifest himself as a human being anywhere he wants. Who knows? He is the most powerful Jedi of all time. So we'll see what happens in that movie. Where I rank this film, it is second behind Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back is my very favorite Star Wars film, and this one is actually second. Last Jedi is my second favorite Star Wars film for all the reasons I pointed out in this movie review of this film. Yes, it has its flaws. The Canto Bite sequence, if you take it out of the film wouldn't suffer from it. But I'm a fan of Finn, so I do want to see him in the movie. And even though they didn't have anything to do with them, it was nice to see him in the damn movie. And as well, I want to see what happens with these characters going forward. Again, Snoke being killed. I didn't gloss that over. I didn't mention him really in the characters because he there's not really much to talk about with Snoke. He has no different of a role than the Emperor did in Empire Strikes Back, where you just know in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi that the Emperor is a powerful being. He's a dark side user. He is the Emperor, and they have to deal with him. And that's what Snoke was. So I don't think he needed a backstory or anything. I think it worked out just fine. I think he's fine. And I with the way he went out, I love it. I think that's perfect for a character who they didn't give you any backstory for him. He had no arc. As again, the theme in the movie, he made a mistake and he got chopped in half by his apprentice, who was going to do that at some point in the relationship anyway, because that's what dark side users do. The apprentice he's expected, and he must eventually take out his master. That's the way it goes. Darth Vader took out the Emperor. It happens. So I love this movie. I absolutely love this movie. I went and saw it 5 times in the theater, and every time I went to see it, I loved it even more. And it's just no, it's not perfect, but I like how different it is. Just like Empire Strikes Back was so much different from those other than Return of the Jedi and New Hope. this is going to be the most unique film in this new trilogy, because this is going to be bookended with J.J. Abrams having directed episode 7. He's directing episode 9. So this one is going to stick out in the future because Rian Johnson directed it. And I think he did a great job. I liked his point of view. Obviously, he could have done better with some of the characters we had, but I liked most of the choices he made. I thought it was a beautiful film. The sound design is great. The music's great. It just all flows together. It's a unique experience, and you can't say that all the time with some of these Star Wars films, like in the prequels. This film is unique. It's its own film, and I think it works really well. And it's definitely different in tone than The Force Awakens, but I think that's what it needed, because everybody complained that The Force Awakens was a reboot of A New Hope. This wasn't a reboot of anything. This was its own original film, and I think looking back on it in the future, this would be regarded as one of the greatest Star Wars films of all time. That's my review of this one. I'll see you guys on the next movie night. Take care.